end of the week.
It is. It's Friday morning for us.
We're going to end this week with a couple conversations here. Today, we want to talk about community. And I think that communities, it's very important. And the question we're asking in the title of this video is, how important is community?
Extremely important.
Right? And I think I think a lot of people would say, yeah, it's important. And they maybe could draw a straight line from why to why. But they don't invest in it. They don't invest intentionally in a community.
Well, I just think of, since we're just starting June of 2023, there's a couple major companies that, clearly didn't understand their community.
Yeah. And it seems like every 5 to 10 years, we have other big companies that come along in different industries and demonstrate that.
Mm-hmm.
So how important is community? My first thought is it's your network. We've talked a lot about networking on here, and that's where you're going to find your network of people who will buy from you or can refer you or, put you in touch with whomever you need to grow your business.
Yeah.
New employees.
When the word community comes to my mind, to me, there's a lot of different communities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And depending on what business you're in, you may navigate between, many different communities.
Mm-hmm. It's not a tradition, like the traditional way you think about community is your local city, town.
The people in just,
people in proximity to
driving distance. Yeah. Physical locations.
I mean, now with social media and the internet, it's global.
Yes.
I took a international trip with my family and was able to connect with people internationally in person. So that's pretty cool. So it's like local, like globalized, localized, global, however you would think about that. People sometimes will use the phrase global citizen. And I think it's true. I think there's, you can reach anyone pretty much, except for maybe a handful of tribes that aren't connected yet. But yeah, it's, I think first and foremost is your network. If you're talking about why should I care about community, it's drawing a line from what is it and ROI. I mean, investing in it, being intentional about it, whatever it looks like to you and your business is important. I think another thing too to cover is that it's a source of new ideas and inspiration. I see a lot of businesses that get stuck in their offices. They get stuck behind their computer, churning it out day to day, and they basically just need to get out of the house. They need to go and meet with people. And that can be done virtually too. It can be a mix of everything, but I think too, going in person and meeting people, shaking hands with people, having conversations about life, talking about, all the things that you're doing in life, it is inspiring.
No, in this day and age of having a lot of Zoom meetings and companies that I deal with, running a bank, there's a lot of different software companies to deal with, and some that you only talk to on Zoom and or Teams or whatever outlets. You still don't have that same connection of going face to face. You can't read that person. So much of talking communication is nonverbal,
right?
And you do lose a lot of that. And
I think a lot of times that will be demonstrated when you go to conferences. So physically going to a conference now post-COVID, you get to meet some of these people you've only met virtually. There's some people you've done business with. You've paid money, you've transacted, you've built some kind of a work relationship for years, and then you finally meet them, and there's a good connection there for all the things that come from it just naturally with relationships.
And then I find afterwards of breaking bread, meeting somebody face to face, then your interactions afterwards, whether through teams and everything, they're either more efficient. You know each other better. You get through things faster.
Yeah.
And
there
seems to be a lot more honesty and trust.
You kind of learn their quirks. You learn their personality more, their characteristics, and you can talk more their language and vice versa. you and I both have been part of client dinners and things like that. And I know you're planning to go, meet some of your customers here pretty soon in person, which you do on occasion. And, doing that is invaluable because you get to know them on a different level. But you pick up on things that you wouldn't necessarily have on a hour, 30-minute, 15-minute Zoom call. Those calls are relegated to task and projects.
Yes.
Typically, you're not going to sit and have a conversation about just whatever. You're going to get on with your work. But when you have that hour and a half dinner where you're sitting across from this person or next to this person and you have to make small talk, well, it's either going to just be small talk or it's going to turn into actual good conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's where, that's where you can identify true challenges that the business or individual may be facing that you may have the answers with and actually provide way more value.
For sure. On the business side, yes. I mean, 100%. And going intentionally with ideas of where you want to take conversations from a business standpoint is important too. So you can kind of structure some of those conversations and get a lot of value from it. I would say on the flip side of that, what I've seen is the personal side. Talking about community, it's really personal. You are investing in other people's lives holistically. Like in your community, you have all kinds of things going on. It's not just business. It's people living their lives as people. And there's a charitable aspect to community. And I think you learn things about people, again, kind of this thread I'm kind of putting in there of intentionality, because you have to be thinking about it. You can't just, it won't serendipitously happen. Some things will, but it won't to the degree that will actually help you. So
what are the things what kind of advice can you give a business, maybe establish a year profitable, like how to seek out their community or, how to identify their communities that they're involved in
So that's a good question because it goes to my next point. It's almost like you knew my notes. I think that it's easy, I think, from a marketing standpoint, if you think about your buyer, where do your buyers congregate? And then if you think about your partners, meaning people who can refer you to your buyers, where are they congregating?
Okay. So that would be maybe two separate communities right there.
Two separate, but a lot of times they're in the same place because those people are trying to sell your buyer, their vendors or, allies. So finding out, always seeking to understand who they are is going to tell you more about where they are, and then finding where they are and being there, period. Like just showing up and being part of the conversation. That can be LinkedIn, it can be Twitter, it can be all the social media, depending on your business.
I've seen some of the most hyper-targeted communities are on Reddit. I've gotten some great information from Reddit.
Oh yeah, for sure. It could be any of those platforms, both social or non-social, and those are the most likely for where you're going to find your buyers and partners these days. But you're also going to find them offline. And I think there's such an arbitrage at the moment with offline, meaning events, conferences, dinners, getting your marketing team to think about the buyers and partners intentionally, about them as people in their roles. How can we add value in their role if you're going after CFOs, understanding how they think, their personalities and how they operate, and then adding value to those roles. You put on a dinner, or you put on a little workshop that you have a speaker come in and speak on something that is very valuable to their profession, to what they're doing, and maybe help them advance, maybe help them, make more money for the company, whatever it may be. Yeah. Those kind of things are invaluable, and they may not pay you back right away.
So identify community, learn about the community.
Learn how to bring value, and then just slowly test. It doesn't have to be an all-in thing. It can be, okay, our buyers are CFOs. Our partners are tax strategists or accountants. This is an easy one. So we're going to put on a small dinner where we're going to invite both of those parties, people that we want to sell, people that are current clients and current partners. We're going to invite them all and just create a mini micro, microcosm of that. And then connect it all by email or connect it all by a webinar that everybody can have Q&A on. Like, there's so much that you can do past being intentional about people at a place. Because then when you get into, well, you can create content with and around all of that and then scale that content in front of all the other partners and buyers in the marketplace that you want to get in front of virtually on LinkedIn and social media. And so, then you can really get into scaling your one-to-one efforts to be, I've actually been talking to some colleagues about how to scale relationships recently. And that's it. It's like, be intentional with a few people. I
find that you have to really enjoy the community that you are in, or if you want to be a part of. If you don't actually have interest in that community,
for sure, yeah,
I think you're not going to have any longevity.
Yeah, if you're just in it to make money, let's say you bought a business and you're just very cold to it, you're just there for the ROI. It's going to be much more difficult for a community. And
in the long run,
you may be in a business where hey, you know the math, do the math, make the sales, build a business, sell it for 1.5x or whatever. It's some businesses are like that. But if you're in business for longer term, maybe not to sell, maybe to, grow and hold or, integrate,
maintain and have stability.
Yeah. Or create sustainability and, grow new aspects of things that are attached to your, almost like a hub and spoke to your business. Then community is a big deal.
Yeah.
It should be sort of an underlayment to a lot of the other business and marketing efforts that you take part in. And I'd say one more thing, like leading it, being the host, being the person that's bringing the people together is going to be the most important role you could play in the community. It's not just about being the chairman of the organization.
Yeah.
Right. That's, again, depends on your buyer partner ecosystem and your business. Maybe that's what they like and they want, so do it. But it's more about like saying you're in high school and everybody over, party happens at your house. Like, you know what I mean? Like, well, guess what? You're the coolest kid because you had the party and parents weren't home. That's what it's like in business. It's no different. Be the one who hosts everything and makes and identifies the value, brings the value. It can be fun. I think it can be, it doesn't have to be, all work, no play. And we've kind of stated this. I have just another point. Like that's where your customers are. Like,
yeah,
you're going to find, if you look back right now, if you just did a quick mental back of the napkin, where did all of our customers come from? Most people are going to say referral. They're going to say word of mouth, 80, 90%, unless you're in e-commerce. And even in e-commerce, when you're doing lead gen work with ads, programmatic ads, even then a lot of business comes from referrals through reviews.
Especially after you've been ongoing for years. Then if it's not coming from referrals, I mean, think about, you need to take another look at it.
Yeah, think about some of the tech that you have been a part of. Excuse me. What they do is they email you and they ask you to invite a friend. Here's $20.
Yeah.
Right? That's a referral.
The Marriott Bonvoy points.
Yeah.
If you accept, you got 50,000 points, Lee.
That's right. Yeah. I constantly have, I got Capital. I have Capital One, and I constantly get these like emails from them that share with a friend, and if they sign up, then you get 70,000 points.
So close to platinum status. So I need you to.
I always send it to my brothers, and I say, hey, if you're thinking about a new credit card, I could use an extra $200.
Yeah.
I think to wrap it up, the biggest point, and I got this from you too, is people in communities are communities based on shared interest. That's where we've gone from traditional, localized, geographical to interest-based.
And that came to mind in the, banking. Banking has been around for years and years. This is early business.
Since the Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith.
Transfer of money and back and forth. And when I started in banking 20 years ago, in 2001, and we would have examinations and regulators would come in, I remember they would say, well, you lent 100 miles away. How did they drive past so many banks and knew? That's not your community. I'm thinking, what? Yeah, but at that time we do gas stations. So gas stations know each other. That's their community.
Yeah.
So we're in the community of finance and gas stations at that time. And so I'm like, what do you mean 100 miles? It just bogged my mind that that was like, they're going, this can't be a good loan. It's 100 miles away.
Right.
And that was their old time. And still a lot of that. And so I'm like, no, we've got a local community here. But in banking, your local community here, are they bound by only banking with the local bank that is headquartered in that town? Well, it used to be every town kind of had a headquartered bank, you know,
there was a bank,
15,000
post office,
banks, 20 years ago, and now we're at 4,200. So very few local banks anymore. But I'm like, well, my competitors, they're not subscribing to only bank in their local geographic region. So, I mean, you want to constrain me to people in a physical location in a 5-mile radius of where we are, but yet my competitors they don't care. I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And when I looked at it, it was, okay, communities are shared interests. It's, yes, we're in this industry of money service businesses. They are the community. They are around everywhere in the nation. So, I mean,
that's right.
That's our largest community we're involved in. We're also hugely involved into our local community.
Yeah.
That may be grassroots as far as open care of, when it is local and that you be, assist more in, say, younger generation, sponsorships and scholarships and things like that, where it'll be different in other community. But I just think it's awesome. There's so many communities out there. And I even saw that as a kid growing up, you would have maybe your friends that you're in class with, but then, okay, later you meet friends that, they're a community that they enjoyed the same video games you were in.
Yeah.
Or, so there's all these subsects of communities that you can be involved in and add value.
Right.
And really shared interests. So,
and so if we played that out from the money service business side, you are going to conferences.
Yeah.
You are, you're meeting with your customers on site, which this is not just, 2-3 miles down the road. This is hundreds of miles down the road.
No, and you got to understand that and then provide content that is specific to that community. Know that community.
Yeah, so you're creating valuable blog posts, emails, videos, et cetera, that are adding value to them, educating them, helping them in their role. You are putting on dinners, and you are also getting invited to dinners that they are putting on, and they're collectively, they're collecting their community for you or letting you be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great...
the more you get involved, the more they want you to be involved.
Correct. And, it's one of those things. I mean, a community are the same thing with, let's say, local Rotary chapters. If you enjoy Rotary, you enjoy service above else, then you get a lot of joy out of that. The same thing we do in that community. Like, we enjoy the owners of the businesses, enjoy what they're doing, how the services and everything they're providing to their neighborhoods and their community. So, yeah, I mean, when you enjoy it and you go to serve, good things happen.
Yeah. You've also taken another route. You've also banked a lot of agriculture type businesses just due to the geographical location of the bank in over history.
Correct.
So if you look at farms, whether they're farming ferns or they're farming cattle, and not that you've necessarily made it a point to go after agriculture type of businesses, but let's say you did. Well, then it's getting to know those farmers and understanding how they live.
And what's funny is the communities that I get involved in, they seem to all have some similarities. So, that community has a lot of similarities to the money service business community. You've got traditionally smaller businesses, say their sales are between $500,000 and $10 million a year and they are kind of grassroots owners of that. They are the small businesses of America. So they really do have a lot of the same mindset and they care for that. And I mean, in agriculture, I mean, I don't know about you, but agriculture is never going to go away.
Right.
And we need to support that.
Yeah, well, and that's one thing that you do. But to give an example,
you got to support money and transfer of money, and you got to support food and that product. So, those are staples that you have to take care of. That to me, these all touch and need the community of banking too.
To give another example, in that community, if you get to know those people, instead of just being a cold bank that does transactions, you guys have gotten involved in the Future Farmers of America program. You know, you make it a point to participate in the auction where they have a livestock auction every year.
All the youth, you know, so we can foster youth people wanting to get into agriculture because, you know, how many people were involved in agriculture prior to, you know, World War II? I mean, so much. And then it's less and less every year. But, you know, being in agriculture and raising livestock, I mean, the rewarding you see of the people that do it, to me, it probably is one of the most rewarding careers out there.
Sure. And I think too, like you could take that as a tactic and say, oh, that's clever. Well, you know, we don't really care about our customer. We don't really care about agriculture. We just know that the math works out. So we're going to strategically go and support the livestock auction because we know that they care about that, right? I think a lot of big businesses do.
They do that,
but you guys actually care.
No, and what happens there is they'll put those businesses into peril too, because sometimes what looks right on paper shouldn't be. You know, and especially dealing in agriculture in this community, there's a lot of things that are, you know, you can plan for risk, but something can happen and your crop's gone. You know, there's a million things that are out of your control that you can plan for, but they're just going to happen.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes the worst thing for them is more debt, you know, that'll destroy them. Right. So, you know, it's that fine line of also telling them, yes, technically you can afford it, you can prove it, you can do this, but you shouldn't do that at the time by knowing that industry.
Right. Those hard conversations.
Correct.
But you and your team being involved in these events and, you know, drilling down into the actual culture of the community, it shows that you actually care and you are intentional about it, like to the individual level.
Yeah.
And that plays through instead of it just being a sort of a strategic move or a mathematical equation. I think I'm saying that because I don't want people to get this idea of like, oh, well, we just have to sort of follow this formula.
No, and
it's not really like that. It's, you know, if you want people to be around you and have value to you.
Well, that goes in hand in hand. I hate the businesses out there that have that pop, like, okay, great. I made a lot of money this first few years and their margins are great. And then it just kind of degrades over time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I see that in community banks. The biggest thing that really pisses me off are the banks that you know that all they're going to do is sell to a bigger bank in 5 to 10 years. The whole idea is to do that. So what do? They come in, they want to grow loans as quickly as possible. They're going to undercut because they know they're not going to be here later. They don't need to pay for when a recession hits. They don't need to have money in their coffers. They're just building as quickly as possible. And you know, a lot of businesses may get that quick little benefit of a little bit extra rate, or they got a little bit extra, but in the long run, they're gone and they're not there when things happen.
It does damage.
You know, so I like sustainability, and I don't know, I want peace of mind too.
Yeah. And stability, I think, is another way to say it from the customer side. Customers looking for stability.
Yeah.
So you have to look at how to build something that's sustainable to give them that's.
We both graduated at the same time, right after the .com blow up. So leading up to that, it was, tech jobs, this, and then they all went away. In 2001, when I graduated college, tech on, and then we had the building. Everybody was everybody was an investor in real estate, and then it all went away.
Yeah.
So all these pops that people had and income those years, maybe their household income was 150 and they hit 300,000 for a year. 2 years later, it's gone. What did they do? They were not happier. No, they didn't get happier. They actually got stressed, and then it went away. Like
more of a burden.
Correct. You know, we want to be able to plan, have stability. You know, plan out back time, not just that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know we probably went off a little bit.
That's
but
right.
thanks.
No, it's valuable. I mean, I think this is all a really good topic for people to listen to. If you are getting value out of this, please leave a comment. Let us know. And we'll
give questions and
we'll take it from there. All right. I think that's good. I like it. Moving on to the next one.
Let's hear it. Let's go.